What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Hope you're having a great weekend. I am sorry for not uploading as often as I'd like to, but I've been super busy with my job and also my son. He's 2 years and some change, and he keeps me on my toes, to say the least. So I've just had not had as much time as I would like to upload quality content, but I did want to do a enclosure update for all of my enclosures. Unfortunately, you won't see all of my animals in these, but the purpose of this is to talk about the enclosures and see how they're doing. So let's kick it off with these slippery little sea serpents, which I like to call greater sirens. These are in a 150-gallon aquarium, which is completely overgrown. I'm sorry for the crappy glare, but I'm not going to hang blankets over the back of the other tanks. I'm just too lazy to do that while I'm filming this. There's just really no good way to film it. But these things are almost 2.5 feet long now. As you can see, it is very vegetated, which is great. Just means that I do not have to um, do water changes as much because it is super filtered now, even though I have two massive canister filters working on this and air stones and everything else. But these animals seem to do great. I've seen an egg here or there, so definitely at sexual maturity. I haven't seen any big clutches, but they have shed any shyness they had. They are extremely inquisitive. They are ravenous. They will eat whatever I drop in there. So when I'm cleaning it out, I am a little careful with my fingers because I don't want to lose one and give it they you just got to be careful because they when they get a hold of something they tear it apart. But anyways, really cool animals. They are big and they are probably one of the coolest animals I've ever kept, to be honest, just because they're always out like this swimming around and I could honestly watch them for hours. Just and there's two of them and they seem to get along very well, and I think the tank is going well. Blackbeard algae and diatoms, by the way, are the challenges in this tank, ongoing, but everything else seems to be good. Well, let's kick it over to my messy Eastern newt Paludarium. This is a 40-gallon. I have one Eastern newt in there. I've got this little waterfall in the back, which is great. There's obviously a multitude of duckweed in here. This one's okay. I mean, I had lots of Eastern newts, or four of them at one time. I can't remember how many I had. I think it was four. And unfortunately, all of them have passed. I've had these the longest. As you can see, this tank is very overgrown, especially with golden pothos, and you can see the newt's little legs there. But this one just keeps going. After he's gone one day, I don't. That'll stink, but I will probably gut this one and have some other kind of newt species. But I enjoy it. He's very inquisitive, and I've had this little newt for a while, and I look forward to having this one for, well, hopefully a long time to go. But as I said, it's got a nice big place in here, and there's the blackworms down there, and not really much else to show on this one. It's just very vegetative and very aquatic, and that's about it. Just a lonely newt. All right, let's go over to something that's not aquatic, which is the arboreal salamander setup. Unfortunately, well, there's two in here. I had three. Unfortunately, one passed away of a bacterial infection a couple years ago, or maybe it was like 2 years ago. I can't remember now. This one is pretty dry. I just sprayed it down. That's why it looks damp, but this one is fairly dry. They like it dry, believe it or not. So I have the mister go off once. The mist king go off like once a day. They have some burrows they've actually dug out. I haven't seen them in a while. Sometimes they're both out, and they're. I mean, the food disappears pretty quickly, so I know they're in there and they're doing well. But anyways, it's this one's fine. Like I said, it's dry. It's hard to keep a lot of plants going in here just because of the dryness. So these vines tend to grow pretty well, but not a lot else. There's that syngonium down there, which is still alive, but not a lot. I had some ferns. They all died, unfortunately, because, like I said, it's just a much more arid setup. But they seem to like it, and when I had it damper, actually, that's when I saw the bacterial infection with the other one. So the breeder I got this from, told me to stay away from that. So, anyways, hopping over to a similar type of enclosure. Well, actually, it's the same enclosure, but not uh, the same. It's just the same dimensions and the same manufacturer. This is for my northern red salamanders. This is a Paludarium. This one's been interesting. They climb all over it. Some people said it was stupid to have it high. And I kind of agreed with them at first, but I find them all over the place. I have seen some mosses start to sprout up and some liverworts, which is really cool out of nowhere, and some other plants. The ferns tend to keep going, which is great. Some of the mosses died off, and sorry for that, how close that was, but this one's been really interesting, only because I've seen a lot of temperate mosses die off, and then other mosses come up in their spot, in their place, which I guess were uh, some of the moss spores or whatever, spikes. I don't know what the heck they're called. I forget. That may have been part of the original clump of moss. There's the red salamander tail there. It's a little grainy because I tried to zoom in, but there's two of them in here. They seem to get along. They're both about the same size, and it's a cool enclosure. I like it. They definitely utilize the height of it, which again I can appreciate, and I'm glad they do. Otherwise, I would have been like the critics were right. I need to redo this, or put them in something else and put something in here. But overall, this one's been fine. It's I like the setup. I like how it's getting all viney and stuff, and things are starting to grow down and starting to look really cool. Anyhow, and let's move over to the black-chinned red salamander. This is a stream setup here, enclosure with a little spring in the background there, which keeps the water aerated. A lot of ferns have kind of grown out of nowhere. The only ferns I actually planted in here were the ones on the left, the big ones you'll see. And so I'm not. So this stuff is all kind of sprouted up. The moss has kind of taken off. Some of the liverworts have too. And there's a little bit of algae, but that's cool. I don't mind algae. What I don't want is cyanobacteria, which is disgusting. Right now, I only have it in one of my tanks. That's just a blackworm container on the bottom, where I put blackworms. One of the salamanders, there's three in here, is still aquatic after 3 years. You can see one right there, the red tail. Two of them are been morphed now for like 2 years, and the other one, I mean, he may never morph. I don't know. So, anyhow, I've got a little fan up here, computer fan. But this is like one of my favorite setups. I like it. It's a kind of a stream biotope, and I just really like the way this one has grown in and turned out. This is maybe, I don't even know. Gosh, I know it's about a year at least. And this one plant here has kind of grown out of nowhere with the flowers, which is cool. I was to trim it back, but yeah, everything seems to have turned out well with this one. The animals seem to thrive in it, and definitely one that I enjoy watching quite a bit. Just given the stream kind of feature that I built in with the wave machine thing from Fluval. So now let's move over to the cave salamander enclosure, which I love this one. I wouldn't build it the same anymore. I did all this out of styrofoam, but this thing really took off. I had a bunch of different kinds of mosses in here, and they all just seem to have adapted. And I don't know if that's watercress. That plant is just come out of nowhere with some of the temperate mosses I put in there, and I love it. I just hope it keeps spreading. The animals love hiding in it. I don't have any really good footage of the cave salamanders right now, but there's four in here. I've got some stuff on my Instagram page, Slithering Salamanders, the handle, if you want to check that out. Some really cool footage of these animals, both underwater and climbing around. You can see one of their tails right there. But yeah, the moss just seems to keep creeping. It's drier on top, so they've got that gradient, so they can get out of the wetness if they want. There's some algae, but it's all good. It's fairly clean. I've had some eggs in here. None of them have been have kind of come to fruition, but there's been two times where there's been eggs all over the place, and so look forward to hopefully at some point maybe getting some that actually hatch. That would be great. But until then, this is a really fun enclosure, and definitely one that is unique and different. I haven't really seen a lot like this out there. There you go, right there. There's two of them. You can see their tails. So they totally utilize this entire enclosure. So this is a really cool one. And I am excited to see where this one goes. This one, there's absolutely nothing in. This was kind of an experiment. This is where I used the Buddy Rhodes vertical mix, which I really like. But as you can see, a lot of the moss and liverworts on this, even though it's humid in there, did not make it. Some of the mosses adapted. Some of it is growing these clovers. Some of it's getting brown. You can see the liverwort is growing kind of in a weird way. Sorry for the cloudy water. I just actually did a water change, but some algae. Wasn't really sure what I would put in here. I was thinking maybe some kind of small dusky species like a seepage salamander or something, but nobody really breeds those, so may tear this one down or I may just sell it. I'm not sure. Moving on to the northern gray cheek salamander enclosure. This is meant to be temporary, but they seem to thrive in here. I just sprayed it down, but they typically like it drier, believe it or not. These were originally wild caught, I guess, by someone who lived, I think they lived in either Western North Carolina or maybe it was Southern Virginia, and I guess they had legally collected them. Anyways, I got these a couple years ago from this person on the way back from a trip, and these are really cool. I see them out all the time. They have done really well in here, so I'm just going to let them stay in here for a while until I contemplate building them a bigger enclosure. As you can see, some of the moss looks brown. It's because I do keep it drier usually, and I don't, because they like it. I mean, it kind of sucks for the plants because a lot of them want more humidity, but for the moss, it's not great. But the animals, that's really what I'm doing this for. So, and some of the moss is working, as you can see. It's growing like it should. But yeah, this is a really cool one too. Like I said, at some point I will move the animals out. I'll probably just move all of the substrate and everything to a bigger enclosure and just use this for a smaller species because these can get 6-ish inches. And in that same vein, like the northern gray cheek, this is my red-legged salamander, my Plethodon shermani enclosure. I love this one. This is like one of my favorites that I've ever built. Just to me, it seems extremely realistic and indicative, or reflective, I should say, of the natural environment of these. If you're kind of out in eastern Tennessee, western North Carolina, just kind of upland, kind of woodland forest. And I really like it. I'm also keeping it a little drier in here too, because these animals are almost exactly the same, except that these have red legs while the other ones don't. And in fact, one of these in here would easily get mistaken for a northern gray cheek. These are all captive bred, but and I've dug out some warrens and holes, some tunnels under here when I built this. So that's where the animals usually are. In fact, I haven't even seen 4 of them in at least 2 years. So I'm hoping they're all still alive. But anyways, it's a great enclosure. So this one, there's nothing in. This was my sphagnum bog that I built several months ago. As you can see, the ferns unfortunately died up there. They didn't make it, but all of the moss has done well. Even the stuff up on the top, which is a little drier. Again, I was going to give a gradient to the animals I put in here to have a wet and dry gradient. But the moss and liverworts, particularly the sphagnum moss, has really taken off. This is an excellent enclosure. I was going to put, I'll just tell you, some 4-toed salamanders, some captive bred in here, but I was talking to the breeder, and I think it was focused so much on what their breeding environment and where they lay eggs look like that I didn't really think about how much land in drier conditions I needed. So I'm not sure what I'll do with this, or if I'll put something else in here, or I'll just have to make some more land. But that's what I was initially going to put in. Now I'm not really sure, but there's nothing in here, but I enjoy just looking at it. I mean, it's really a pretty legit enclosure that like I said, that's really grown in nicely, fairly quickly. And we'll see how this one goes. And if I can get those animals in and kind of modify this, I will. Otherwise, I'll figure something else out for it. But it's really pretty to look at, and it's very lush. So enjoy that. Let's move on to these food beggars here, which is I've had these for a very long time too, like the eastern newt. These are my blotched tiger salamanders. I have 2 of them in a 75 gallon, and I really like them. They are out almost the whole time. Sometimes they'll go down for like maybe a month or 2 underground, but for the most part they are out. The pothos and I think it's a peace plant, I don't know what that is, and some moss, mainly leaf litter. It's fine. It's pretty much overrun by pothos at this point, but it gives them a ton of substrate, as you can see, to burrow down, because that is what these animals do. And I really like these. I've had them for a long time. They're extremely interactive. They're smart. They know when I walk in the room, they come right to the corner because they think they're going to get fed. And I really like this one. I don't know that I'll redo this anytime soon. I'm not crazy about the background, but it works. They're happy in there. They're healthy. That's what matters. It's not the most aesthetically pleasing. I also don't think it's garbage either. So I enjoy it, and I think I'll keep it around for a while. But two awesome animals. They're just always out fighting over food. This is a Carolina spring salamander in here. This is a 20-gallon long. This setup has been great. Unfortunately, I had another one who died of bloat. I had an earlier video from the summer where I talked about that. I think I'm not really sure what happened. I think the animal had kidney failure. I just couldn't figure out why. I tried a host of things to save it, and it just didn't, unfortunately. But this one that's in there seems to be doing really well. You can't see him now. Like I said, you can check my Instagram handle and take a look at some recent footage I have of that animal, and it's fairly robust and doing well. This one's a little overgrown with vines and pothos. Got some moss, some Java moss, which I put in there. Usually I don't put tropical moss in with, certain enclosures, but I did it with this one, and it's fine. Not a big deal. It's, it works. But I like it. It's, again, kind of like a smaller stream biotope. Just looking for, it's 7.5 inches at least. I don't know why we can't find it, but they're really good at hiding too. So anyhow, let's move on to the northern spring salamander, which is right on the rack beneath it. And this one is a relatively new enclosure I built. I redid it. I really, really like this one. A lot of the moss died off. Some of it, some of the more aquatic type of moss in there has adapted. I also am trying to push the water around like I am with my northern, or not my northern, but my black chin red salamander. Unfortunately, you can see that nasty cyanobacteria on the bottom. I have to treat that. I've been treating it. I think it's because I have sand in there. Maybe I'm leaving the lights on too long. Unfortunately, you get that in some of these. The reason I'm shaking that right there is because that's the animal right there. You can see his arm and everything. It's a northern spring salamander. I've had this for over 4 years now. Believe it or not, some guy was using this as bait, and I told him, hey, they're pretty rare, don't do that. And the guy said, fine, take it. So I did. And they're legal to keep here, so I kept it, and I've had it for 4 years. It's a great animal and eats a lot and is not that shy, which is cool. It's learned to, I call it domesticated, but almost like the tiger salamanders, it comes to the glass when I enter the room. Typically, right now he's not, but anyhow, I will continue to fight the cyanobacteria in this one, and I will be introducing, as soon as I can get rid of the cyanobacteria, I have another northern spring salamander that I've had since a larva, a tiny larva, like an inch long, and I've had it in a separate enclosure, which you'll see here shortly. And that is the animal now. It's pretty big. It's in a 10-gallon vertical drip wall that I built because it was smaller at the time. It's about the same size now as the northern spring salamander in the other enclosure. So this is the enclosure I'm talking about. This thing is about to get retired soon. It's just, I've used it for a while, and there's the animal at the bottom there. Northern spring salamander, really cool animal. Like I said, it's almost the same size now as the other one. I just have to figure out a way to introduce them and be careful. But I was worried at first that this one was going to be too small and get eaten. Now it's impossible. So excited to get those two together and get rid of this one. Anyhow, let's move on to my huge long-tailed salamander enclosure. I love this one. It's got some Java moss, which I put in there, which again, I don't normally do, but I knew it would work because I was having such a hard time with the temperate mosses. So a lot of this is Java moss. Some of it's temperate moss that is aquatic in nature, and some of it is liverworts. All these clusters of grasses have been growing. So overall, the enclosure's done well. There's a little bit of algae and gunk on the top. I try to clean that. It's really difficult. But this is a really nice enclosure. Here's the issue here. I have 4 long-tailed salamanders in here, which I've had since larva. I hardly ever see them. like hardly ever. I don't know that I've ever seen all four of them together in here. And it's also winter now, and it's cooler in my basement, so I am not sure that they are even if they're like hibernating. When I say hibernating, like they're all, I see one or two every now and then, but I hope they're all alive. I mean, it's a blessing and a curse to have an enclosure like this. I'm all for dropping the money and doing some extravagant stuff for a native species that is relatively common, but it's almost difficult to know if they're all doing well because I just don't see them. So I have to put a lot of fruit flies in. I put a lot of pinhead crickets. I put all kinds of food in here to make sure that they're doing okay. And I just don't know. I honestly, at some point, almost like you have to do at a zoo, I might just put them in a smaller enclosure, tear this thing down, and you can see there's one right there hiding under the rock, which is pretty typical of them. But again, I don't know where all the other three are. No idea. If you gave me $100 million, I wouldn't be able to tell you where they are. It stinks to not know, but at the same time, I want them to have a naturalistic enclosure like this. It's just like I went overboard. But anyways, like I said, maybe I'll gut this thing and then I will have them in something smaller but equally as appropriate, and then do something else. Maybe put a larger species in here. And as you can see, I'm showing you that stuff there of where they could hide, where I would never see them, like inside these cork barks, behind some of those crevices, things like that. But anyways, let's move on to this one, which is the 40-gallon barred tiger salamander swamp. The only reason this is a paludarium, people ask me all the time, like, oh, I want to do this. Listen, you don't need to have a water feature like this for your tiger salamanders unless you're trying to breed them. I am not trying to breed anything. I have a bunch of substrate in the back that's cordoned off from the water. This one has to go. I have to gut this. Some people like it. I liked it a while ago. It needs to be gutted. It's not appropriate anymore. I want the tiger salamanders to be in something similar like the other ones, especially because this one is huge. It's twice the size of the one that's buried in the substrate. Again, really cool animals. Excuse me. So we'll see. It's just, like I said, this whole thing needs to be like a forest floor with a lot of substrate. Something like this, actually. And this is actually my last one here that I'm going to show you. And this is for my slimy salamander. Unfortunately, I had 3 in here for years. And I added some new substrate. And I don't know if it was too acidic or too much vitamin A was sprinkled on some crickets. But 2 of them died. I mean, there was no bacterial, fungal, anything that was obvious on the animals. They both died in the exact same spot within 24 hours. The other one is fine. It's still in here. It's a massive northern slimy salamander. And I don't frankly give this thing enough airtime because this is an awesome enclosure. It's a little overrun with the Oakley creeping fig or whatever. And there was a lot more moss, but it's getting taken over. So I'm going to have to trim that back. But this is a great enclosure. Again, I think maybe I was just too cavalier with my addition of the, as you can see, there he is right there. Not a great, but I hardly ever see this animal. So we're all lucky we're seeing it right now. But it's this is a really cool forest floor type of enclosure. So anyways, that is an update on all my animals. I appreciate you all tuning in. I promise I will have some more cool new builds. And thank you again for everything. And I hope you have a great weekend.